All right. Kriya Yoga of action. So Kriya is the yoga of action. Kriya actually means action. So Kriya and Kundalini Yoga is the action that leads towards manifestation, encouraging the seed to blossom, and stoking the fire of desire and become committed to your sadhana practice. So those are the things that is happening during the Kriya, when you're practicing Kriya Yoga, is that as you begin to clear, focus on your breath and move and relieve yourself of blockages, your seed begins to blossom in the practice. And you start to become more and more committed to your sadhana. Now, sadhana, I don't know if you all are familiar with that, because I know this is a 200 hour and you're new to a lot of the terms, but sadhana is one of those that you want to remember. Sadhana is your practice on the mat. It doesn't have to be any either. This is a Kundalini presentation, but your sadhana could be your regular yoga practice. Meditation can be part of your praying, journaling, and that kind of thing can be your sadhana. A Kriya in yoga is a sequence of postures, breath, sound, and mudra. With Kriya, we begin to move blockages, attachments, and ego. So the Kriya that we practice today, when we put our hands in this mudra and the thumbs were up, that particular Kriya is called the ego eradicator. And that, again, like I had said about Sat Kriya, that's a Kriya that can be done all on its own. Just that. Just doing that for 3 to 5 minutes with your arms plugged up into the air and the breath of fire and the focus at the breath point. Do that for 3 to 5 minutes and then rest for 3 minutes. That alone would be a Kriya. It's a very powerful one because the breath of fire is a very detoxifying breath. It's important to remember that you're creating an experience when you're practicing Kundalini Yoga, and be kind to yourself. So when we practice Hatha Yoga, you're practicing on your form, on your body, right? You're just strengthening the body. You're practicing in the body. Your focus is on the body. Now also the breath too, right? You're focusing on the breath. I'm trying to adjust my light here. But with the Kundalini, we go back and back and back, that you're creating an experience. That when you're in the posture, a timer is set, you're tuned into your breath, you're given a gazing point, perhaps a mantra, and then you just create the experience, trying to do so without judgment or criticism, but with a lot of kindness. We rid ourselves of the stuff that no longer serves our highest good and potential. So the breath of fire, the Agni Pran, is in a lot of our Kriyas to help burn away what no longer serves us. We don't even need to know what it is. A lot of times, a teacher will say, well, just let go of what no longer serves you. And you're like, wish I knew what that was. Or you may be in class and you start crying or laughing. That would be considered a release. It's releasing stagnant energy, old pinned up energy from the body. Having the willingness to release it is enough. We can get real heady about things and really focus and get in the head and not the heart, where we want a lot of answers instead of just trusting our inner self that put us on the mat, that brought you to this workshop today. Trusting in the process. Students often experience a release that could be emotion, could be your emotions, could be mental, it could be mental or physical pain. Emotionally, it may come as laughter, crying, or anger. Mentally or physically, it could feel like a relief or a weight has been lifted. Or, I didn't put this in there and I'll add this later, it could have a feeling of being stuck. Which would mean some people, I had some people, they'll bring up to me, they'll either email me or maybe in chat. We were doing a particular breath and I felt stuck in my throat. Or after that Kriya, I felt a lot of sensation around my tailbone. At that point in time, I typically encourage people to either work with like a Sat Kriya or a breath or even some movement, just depending on where they're at, just so that they can help the body assimilate and move the energy. The process of Kriya and Kundalini connects us to our conscious, connects our conscious to the unconscious. It forms a bridge of energy that realigns you between the body and the mind. Kundalini asanas is often referred to as exercises. And when we exercise, when we're really doing the exercise, we are focused on the mind, the body, and the spirit. We can tone all three. So for me, it took some time because I had a strong Hatha background, and then I got into the Kundalini yoga. And you know, you wouldn't normally say exercises. You'd say asana. But with Kundalini, because of all of the parts together in the Kriya, we refer to it as exercises. And they're also very similar to dynamic stretching technique. The dynamic stretching technique is often used by physical therapists. That's it. When we were in the Kriyas today and we did some pumping, some moving. So there was either the spinal flex moving or stirring the pot, but there was this dynamic stretching technique throughout. That really helps to open up the body. It helps with flexibility. It helps to stagnate that movement while we're breathing. So that's what there's the movement within the asanas or a pumping action. How are we with that information? Moving on. I've got to figure out, because I'm having a feeling that there's probably some information coming into the chat, and I know that there is a way to see the chat, but I'm not familiar with it. So I might have to have someone help me with that so I know how to do that. Because I don't want to miss any of your comments and keep moving on. Give me just a moment here. Found it. Okay, so far you're just, oh, I keep singing Age of Aquarius. That's so funny. I did too when I first wrote this. That was from Molly. She said that this is the ending of the Age of Aquarius. Now it's going to be in your head the whole time. It wasn't mine. Now keep in mind, the Age of Aquarius, right? They were singing about that back in the 70s. Okay, so I can see your chats now. I figured it out. Yay. So feel free to put stuff in there. I'll keep checking it. Okay, I'm seeing it for slides. All right.
Okay. Are you able to hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay. So I'm the person who put in the chat that I felt very emotional at one point, and then you just went over that, and someone else also said that they had that same experience, and so I just wanted to say yes, it was me, and I don't remember exactly the point at which I felt that, and I guess it doesn't really matter when I felt it, but you know, just seeing that slide and seeing that is a normal reaction. I did not cry. I just felt like tearful, but like a joyful, tearfulness at some point.
And I'm really, really glad that you shared that, because since I wasn't able to see it on the chat until now, and it is so common for after class for someone to either send it through chat or through email that they had a release. And like you said, oftentimes you don't know where it came from or why. And it could be laughter, it could be joy, it could just be a sigh, like just weight was taken off of you. That is very common in the Kundalini practice. Anyone else want to share on having a release or anything that they felt during the practice?
Hi, Tina. I will jump in here if it's okay.
Yes.
Was the practice that you just did, was that the same one you did last Monday when afterwards I chatted with you a bit and said that I had that emotional release? Do you remember?
Let me step away for just a moment. I keep track of it.
Okay. And while you're doing that, I'll just say in comment to Kai, who I think that's who it was, who said she had that emotional release. I've done Kundalini off and on over the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
It's ebbed and flowed with my practice. So there have been times when I've done it regularly every week through my favorite yoga studio. And then when they weren't teaching it anymore there, I wasn't going. So I haven't done it on my own, but I've done it with guidance. And there have been times when I felt that emotional release. But with Tina's practice, I think it was last Monday, afterwards, the intensity of that release was overwhelming, so much so to the point where I couldn't stop sobbing. I was wrecked. I was a wreck. And that was a noon class here where I am in my time zone, and I had nothing to eat. So my vessel was empty and I think just open for for absorption. And I ended up just resting throughout the day, and I felt fine as the day went on and after I ate. But I question if it was the same practice. I feel like it might have been very similar, and I didn't feel that today. So I think just as yoga does for us, every time we come to the mat, it's a little bit different experience. And just because you had that emotional release one time doesn't mean that it will happen again. It just depends on where you are. But I was curious.
Thank you, Sue, for sharing that. And I checked, and I did do the elevation Kriya last Monday, that you did practice that. And it's one that I practice a lot myself, simply because it has so many good components in it to encourage deep release and to free ourselves of things that no longer serve us. So it will be interesting to see what happens when we do that again, you know? And one of the things too to be very careful about is that, like anything, oftentimes when we have big releases in our Kundalini class, we might want to have those again, right? Because at first when you have it, it's like, oh no, what's going on? It's scary. It's kind of weird. It's like, what's going on? All this crying and laughing. But then afterwards, you're like, oh, I feel so much better, right? Because you got it out. You got it out. So that is quite common, and that was the same Kriya. And I have someone else saying, let's see, I felt a massive relief, felt very tearful in a good way, and I feel great now. Good. I felt pain in my back. Did I do something wrong? No, that was what I was talking about previously, that oftentimes that you can feel pain down and around the tailbone and the lower chakras, because we hold so much there. Now we are going to go over the chakras in greater detail later on in this presentation. That is very, very common to feel. And usually the best thing to do is to rest, to drink water, and to breathe consciously with awareness. And oftentimes it's recommended to do the Kriya again, as Sue experienced. She had it the first time, she did it again this time. The energy's moving through more freely. That is what we would recommend to do in the Kundalini practice. let's see, I felt stuck energy in specific places where I was experiencing general pain, pushed through, achy, but then it released. So that too can happen. When it first comes up, it can be intense. And then with the continuation of either the breath of fire or the movements, when we're doing the pumping action movements, that can really help to start to move it through. So I think you meant I think you meant the breath of fire. Gives me anxiety when I do it slowly. Is there a way to
That's
help?
what I meant. Sorry.
Okay, so you meant fire, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the breath of fire is not a breath that's really meant to do slowly.
Okay.
You would start off slowly to get the rhythm so that you have it. But then the focus goes to more of a rapid movement, and you want to focus on, let me see if I can find you so I can see. You want to focus
Oh, wait,
on,
I can put my
there
video
you are,
there.
on the exhale. There you are. Hi, Holly.
Hi.
Focusing on the exhale. Right? That will really help. Sometimes when we do it too slowly, we can give a lot of focus to the inhale, and that's where that tendency to hyperventilate could come in to play.
Okay, I try to do it slower because when I've done it in class before at like a studio, like I feel like I'm hyperventilating, and like when I try to do it faster, so I was trying to do it slower so I could like get the hang of it. But even when I do it faster, I like feel like I'm having an anxiety attack.
Okay, so what I would recommend is to do it for a little bit, and when the anxiety starts to come up, stop, breathe normally, and then go into the breath of fire again.
Okay.
Okay, it's
And
a very detoxifying breath. What?
And just keep stopping when I feel that, and then come back.
Yeah, and then come back in again, and then come back in again, so that you can start to relearn the pattern of having moments of practicing it without the anxiety.
Okay.
Right? Because we don't want to seal that in. We don't want you to have anxiety during the breath, or then that's what you start remembering. Oh, I have anxiety every time I do this breath. Oh, I have anxiety every time I do this breath.
Yeah, because even when you said it, I feel like I just, like, when you said we were going to use that breath, I kind of felt anxiety.
You had anxiety. Exactly. So giving yourself permission to just, maybe you just do the first 3 or 4 seconds of breath of fire, and then that's all that you do, and you just take long, slow, deep breaths, and you practice with if we're saying Sat Nam or whatever, you practice on that vibrating the mantra Sat Nam, and then join in again, and then join in again.
That helps a lot.
Yeah. And also make sure that the one thing that will get you in a hinky on the breath of fire is if you're really focusing on the breath, on the inhale, coming in, that, versus just focusing on the exhale and letting the inhale just suck back in with the moving of the stomach. So that's why whenever I put it in the chat, I said pumping the stomach. You're pumping the stomach. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Let's see here. Let me go on down the line. I want to make sure that that's clear. And we are going to go over the breath of fire in greater detail. And at that point in time, start to make more sense. And I'll start to slow it down during the practice and cue you on that so that we can help you move through the anxiety.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see, at the end it was better, not completely released, so the energy was stuck. So there was another one. So, okay, so having pain in the upper back, was that during, let's see, who was that said that? Terry, was that during the moving or the breathing?
I'm not really sure, actually. Just somewhere in my mid, I don't know, just right above the bra strap area. I had pain. And it wasn't constant, but it was, I don't know, off and on. I think mostly when we were in a seated position. It might just completely be physical. My back hurts.
Okay, you cut out a little bit there on me, but that when we started right off with the arms up overhead and doing the warm-ups and started moving the spine. Can you hear me okay? Because we were cutting out just a moment ago.
Yeah, for sure. I hear you fine.
Okay, good. So that pain that you were feeling in the back could have just been not used to using those muscles. It could have been some blocked energy in that area. The main thing, did it stay or did it go away?
It was intermittent, and I'm willing to, I feel like it could have been both of those things. An
Right.
unfamiliar movement, and so my back was pain. Back pain is not a new sensation for me.
Okay. Did it feel like it was skeletal or structural or muscular? Did it feel like it was more in the muscle tissues?
That's a tough one, actually.
No.
I'm good.
I just want to identify that it wasn't any kind of sharp pain that would be nerve pain.
No.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I feel muscular. I feel like it was probably muscular.
It was muscular. Yes. And that is very common with this practice as well, because you have to keep in mind that we did some of these exercises this morning for 2 minutes, right?
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so that was enough time to get the energy flowing in that area to help relieve any stuck energy and also start to work the muscles of that area, which then could start to cause some pain or some discomfort. And one of the things that we start to learn in yoga is the difference between the pain that is okay, that's common, that's muscular pain, it's the body getting stronger, and the bad pain. It's often very common to feel like burning pain, especially when we're doing things where we're lifting the shoulders up and down for 2 minutes. You can start to feel that burning sensation up around the upper shoulders, the trapezius muscle and neck. That's very common. Or even in spinal flex, where you're moving the chest back and forth. If you're not used to that, you might experience some discomfort with that as well.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't really think it was anything terrible that I should be worried about, but it was a very common area, it seems, for people to have felt pain, whether it be energetic or muscular. Could be a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see. I've had some significant inflammation issues at the base of my neck. The day after my first Kundalini practice, it was significantly reduced. Keep running my hand over my spine. I got excited because I could feel the body and get instead of inflammation. Okay, yes. That's, and Erica, if you want to talk any more about this as well, that is one of the things that I myself have experienced with the Kundalini method. I have a tendency to arthritis and things like this, so the skeletal structure can get cranky. And with the Kundalini yoga, I too have felt the inflammation released and more mobility in my neck and body. Erica, do you have any more to share on that, or does that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll chime in. It was interesting because we were doing some activities with the neck that I normally wouldn't do. I have really significant cervical spine issues. It doesn't mean, I don't have to go into them, but they're significant, and I have arthritis like you as well. And I've had it for a while. So it was creaking and there was all these things. And I said, you know what, I can trust myself. I know what I can and can't do. I've had this for so long. Let me deal with it. So I pushed through it, went with it. And it was really, really tremendous because it was like taking a risk, do I do this? Do I not? And then it was really amazing. When you have inflammation, you don't even realize it's there necessarily if you're not really familiar enough with the sensation. But when I put my hand down, it was like I could actually feel those bones. I don't think I felt that in years. And it was special. It was unique. And it was really abnormally wonderful.
Heck yeah.
Mhm.
I'm really glad that you shared that, Erica.
Yeah.
Because having that release through the kriyas and ridding yourself of that physical pain, whether, like I said, it could be mental pain, physical pain, and then sometimes it just feels, you don't even have the word for the relief. It's just that you feel the relief. Or you go to turn your head and you're like, oh, well, that worked. And it's phenomenal. I'm glad that you brought that up. Sadhana is your personal practice. Sadhana is your practice. I say it's on the mat because here's the deal. What we practice on the mat and how we practice on the mat when we're practicing with ahimsa and kindness, when we're focusing on ourselves in that way, watching our self-talk, not being critical, not being the judge, but being very loving and kind. One of my teachers explained it to me in this way, and I've loved this analogy. She explained it in a way of, her name was Ma Jaya. She has an ashram in Florida. So let me give shout out to Ma. She talked about placing a cup in the heart and filling the cup. Now, when you fill the cup, it could be, perhaps you need to fill the cup with compassion. Perhaps it's kindness, patience, acceptance, this kind of thing. But you're filling your heart cup. Because the universal law, and this totally common sense, you cannot give away what you don't have. I love that. You cannot give away what you don't have. So when you're on the mat and you're practicing your sadhana, and let's say you're focusing on filling your heart cup, when the chips fall, when you're at the grocery line, it's not going the way that you want, what will you give? Well, you'll give what you have. So in most cases, you're going to be able to give compassion and kindness and acceptance when others may not. Because it would also be the same if, what if all the time you're filling your cup with anger, with distrust, with criticism, with judgment. So you're giving that to yourself, it's more than likely that's what you would give away. So I always like to go back to that and fall back on, that's part of my sadhana. Is I even, when I emailed Michelle about the presentation and getting everything together and how excited I was, one of the things I shared with her was like, this is an opportunity to fill my cup, right? An opportunity to fill my cup. Woo! All right. Kundalini is so powerful. I know all the answers are inside. I too, the back pain towards the end was all in our backs. Okay, so we're going to get to this. This is the same way I felt. It was so jittery for some reason. It's weird. I love that analogy. Thank you. All right, so the back. The Sushumna, a subtle energy that runs along the spine, right? It starts at the tail. The Sushumna runs all the way up, top of the head. The vagus nerve, or I say vagus nerve, it's actually vagus nerve. Say it like Las Vegas. The vagus nerve runs down from the top of the head all the way down to the perineum. These are two energies in your body. When we start moving energy, there was a lot of encouragement for you to move the energy up the spine. Move the energy up the spine. When doing so, you have to keep in mind that you're running up the spine, which means you're touching all of the systems and all of the nerves and all of the stuff along the back, which could be physical pain, with depending on what chakra we were in. A lot of times when we have issues coming up in the back, it can stem from not feeling like we have enough support in life. Or like someone, a lot of the energetic sayings that we say manifest in the body, being stabbed in the back. If you've had friends or you've dealt with situations where you were stabbed in the back or you felt betrayed by someone, physically your body could still be holding on to that. Then we come into a Kundalini class where we're encouraged to breathe with power, profoundly breathe, making the breath audible, moving the breath up the spine, awakening chakras, awakening nadis, nerves, energy. It would be very common to feel some unusual or not, some sensations that you haven't always felt before. Because I'm sure that when you've practiced your Hatha yoga, did you experience any pain or discomfort then in Hatha yoga classes? Anyone? No, not there, not the same. So not the same. So there, when in your Hatha yoga classes, you felt more probably muscular pain, right? Like strong, like I'm getting tired. I don't know how long we're gonna hold how many chaturanga dandasanas, right? I still think the Kundalini yoga is running through me. Drinking some water will help. Yes, if you're feeling jittery, and if you are feeling a lot of pain, you could be dehydrated, and water helps to stabilize your emotional body, to stabilize your emotions. And it's very, very grounding for you. So drinking water is what you want to do. And most definitely the Kundalini energy is still running through your body. And the sensations and the things that you're feeling could have to do with even with your aura and your subtle body. Because when we're practicing Kundalini yoga, we are working with all those. That makes sense? Does anybody have any
Yeah, I
questions?
guess it was me because I was like, it was an interesting practice because going through the exercises, I found that I was able to get through them, but then all these thoughts kept coming in my head that were not related to the practice. And even at the end, laying down, those same thoughts around life were like coming through me. And I was like, I felt like really jittery, but now drinking some water, I feel like some of that is like moving through the body.
Do you have an empty stomach too? And did you drink any caffeine?
I did drink some caffeine this morning.
Okay. We also want to keep in mind with that,
Okay.
that when we drink the caffeine, I had some caffeine too. So sometimes usually I can tell when I've had a little too much because I'll feel a little bit jittery. Just keep in mind that during the practice, everybody, we were doing a lot of pumping to the stomach. We were breathing powerfully in asana practice. So we were encouraging energy to move. We were encouraging for the energy to move through the body to release these blockages. And when the blockages start to release, that is very common to experience some discomfort, to even have some, like Antoinette was saying, thoughts coming in and around. Sometimes you might have somebody come into your thoughts that you haven't thought about for a long time, or even like an experience that you may have had a long time ago. Everything that happens to us is stored in the body. The gift of the mind is that the mind has its ability, thank gosh, to forget. Right? The mind can forget things, but the body stores things. Now, we may forget that it's there, and then we go get a massage, or we go to an Ayurvedic practitioner and we get some work done there, or we practice a Kundalini class, or some Thai yoga. Thai yoga is one that will also release a lot of blockages. You could be just fine, and then all of a sudden, perhaps you're getting a massage and they run over a certain area and the tears just start coming out. Or the anger or the laughter, or you start getting emotional or even joyful and you don't even know why. I've had that experience in Thai yoga. I've had that experience in Kundalini yoga. So just as we're practicing with this over the weekend, just keep that in mind, that your body has stored traumas that you've had, whether they were spiritual, mental, or physical. And so as we're practicing, I will get to Thai yoga, just keep that in mind, that that is normal and that that will happen. Feel free to stop what you're doing and take a moment to breathe, but then try to come right back into the Kriya, because the Kriya is trying to move that blockage through. So if you can stay with it, modify it if you need, but keep trying to move the energy through. Does that make sense to everyone? I see some heads nodding, okay. Because, and talk to me, even if you need to talk to me privately, because we do want to encourage the energy to keep moving, and it can do that through the breath, through the mantra, through the mudra. It can do that through all of the aspects that we're practicing. Let's see. I've got a comment being less the second time, surplus of energy, but less today, must be releasing blockages. That was from Lauren. Do you want to comment on that in any way?
Hello?
Or
Can you hear me?
yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was similar to, sorry, I've forgotten the lady's name, but she said that she had pain the first time round. It was just when we did the same practice on Monday, I had like I felt really zingy. I could really feel the energy, and it wasn't a negative thing, but it was interesting to observe it, definitely. And very similar practice today, and I had similar sensations, but it was less intense, definitely. So yeah, just going with what you said really about releasing it, and the energy felt like it was moving a bit freer maybe. So yeah, it's good.
And that's a good point to bring up, and several of you all that are attending the classes during the week are noticing how the energy starts to move through your body, which is why if you know the Kriya, we would sit for a moment and just sit and absorb it in, and you could probably feel your body vibrating. I've been practicing for some time, and I still feel my body vibrating with energy. Okay, the chakras are opening up, the body is opening up. We are energetic beings. Our cells are alive with energy. And when we start practicing Kundalini yoga, it is very different, as you're experiencing, than your Hatha yoga class. And the reason why is that we're also working on your elemental body. We're working with the earth element, the air element, the water element, the ether element, the fire element. We're working with those elements to redirect the energy through the body. So it would be very, very normal and quite common to feel odd sensations or even some discomfort as you begin to practice Kundalini. Yogi Bhajan would often say to his students, keep up and you'll be kept up. You maybe have even heard me say that in class before. Keep up and you'll be kept up. Just to encourage you to keep moving through, modify, if you need, but keep trying to move the energy through. Thai yoga is coined the lazy man's yoga, and it's basically where somebody will, you'll lie down on the floor in clothes and someone will press on you and stretch you out. we can talk about that another time because that will spin us off in a different direction. But if you are interested in getting Thai yoga massage, I would strongly encourage it. It is really great. And perhaps we could do a short presentation on that sometime, as I'm certified Thai yoga, so we could do a short presentation on that sometime. I did have thoughts such as meditative visions, colors, patterns, and images. Leslie, I'm glad that you brought that up, because one of the things that will happen during your Kundalini practice that can happen is that you can start to have visions or colors or patterns or images come up. And I want to encourage you to not get attached to them, right? To not let them carry you off into fantasy land. Stay focused. Acknowledge them, that it's happening. Maybe make a note of it for later after, so that you can explore what that vision was, or what the colors were, or what the patterns were, the images. But be very, very careful that it doesn't pull you away from the practice. I hope that makes sense to everyone. If not, chime into the chat stuff, because that's an important key that you want to remember as we practice Kundalini, is that we don't want to be pulled into the fantasy realm of it all. Acknowledge it, see it, explore it afterwards, but keep coming back to your practice, to your Kriya. A couple of years ago, I did Kundalini workshop and I didn't like it or enjoy it. There was a resistance in me, but this practice felt so much different. I had the pain in my upper back, but I enjoyed the practice way more. All right. And I'm glad that you shared that as well. I've heard that before, and I often believe that just has to do with where you're at in your life today, where you're resonating today, and that you're ready for this practice now, and at that time you weren't. I can say that in even my own experience. You know, when I first started practicing Kundalini yoga with my teacher, she taught Kundalini through her ashram. I didn't even know I was practicing Kundalini yoga. She had been practicing Kundalini yoga and teaching Kundalini yoga for 20 years. But when she entered into the ashram lifestyle, she just taught Kundalini, but she didn't call it Kundalini. I didn't even know. And I loved it. I loved it a lot. And I later, in fact, went through her first certification when she started a teacher training, because it was really a phenomenal ashram to study at. Then I took later, and it felt very different to me. It didn't feel the same. And then you come back to it again, and it totally feels different once again. So it's a very organic practice. A couple of years ago, I had an energy healing by a Kundalini teacher, and she recommended it to me, but I resisted. Interesting. So that was Antoinette's share. And, you know, I like that you brought that up, Antoinette, because I feel that oftentimes that happens with us. Letting go of old patterns and things that no longer serve us can be scary. It can be unknown. And if the timing's not right in our, for whatever it is, for Thai massage or Thai yoga or Ayurveda or whatever it is, it doesn't mean that it won't come back to us at another time. However, do acknowledge that resistance and maybe journal about it and dig into it at your own pace and at an own comfortable level. Because even in Hatha yoga, what's the pose that you probably need the most? Have you ever been asked that in a Hatha yoga class? It's typically
the one you don't like.
Exactly. The one that you don't want to do, right? That's usually the pose that you need the most. And that's usually the pose you'll have the most resistance towards. Or it's the pose you're like, I just don't want to do that. We're doing that again. Ugh. You know? So that's interesting. Now, Antoinette, are you feeling resistance this go around? And I think I've seen that you've come to some of the classes during the week. Have you?
I haven't done any of the classes during the week, so I guess like I don't feel the resistance, and now feeling kind of like the energy moving and like the experience afterwards, I definitely can tell the difference from my normal yoga practices. It's a lot more, I don't know, it feels like it's more like I'm getting deeper inside of myself. So it's just funny because a couple years ago, I don't know, I think I just was like, well, I just don't want to change my routine. I don't want to go to that class instead of the class I usually go to at my yoga studio. Like, it was just kind of like nice, but I was like, okay, no.
Yes. And I get that too. And that's where we just need to acknowledge that perhaps it's just not where you were at that time. And so there was some resistance. But if it's coming around now, you might want to explore it on a deeper level, right? Okay, I would recommend that when you're resting in your final rest, to let those images float by like a cloud in the sky. Or the next thing you know, you're going to be monkey mind thinking. You're gonna be pulled into that. So I would suggest to let them go for that, and bring them up more in the time when you're journaling or doing a sadhana practice that's specific to that study, that swadhyaya, that type of self-study, than in your final rest or during your practice. Leah, do you want to talk a little bit more about Vibhuti?
Good morning.
Good morning, love.
Thank you. That was such a beautiful practice. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you. I love it when you speak. You're kapha and you're so calm.
Yes.
Speak more to us, Leah.
Yeah, I'm the emotional water, right? Yeah. Oh, beautiful. No, I was just commenting on, some of the beautiful images and colors and euphoric experiences some of these people are having. It's just like in, the practice of yoga, which can be Kundalini, Hatha, sadhana, Ayurveda, any of these things, daily life, Kriya and Ya, is just uniting soul with every moment of action. So, however, when we have these vibhutis, we just must remember those are not the goal, right? Union is the goal. So it's beautiful. We are these energetic bodies, just as you are so eloquently and beautifully conveying, and we are experiencing through our practice with you. That is not the goal, right? So I love that you're saying, just let those go for now. Don't fall into them. They will arise, they will pass, they are ephemeral. They will change depending upon your own chitta vritti. And so let them go. But that was it. Nothing.
But that was really major. And I'm so thankful that you chimed in. Thank you so much. Because that's a very, oftentimes when we're in a group setting like this, it's nice to hear the same thing, but differently. And a kind way to not allow that to be the goal, to not be sucked into it, to just, it's going to rise up and then it passes away, and then rise up and then it passes away. And then bringing the awareness that, it is all yoga. And also, as I was saying before, this stems back even to what Leah was saying, that we need to be aware of that even when we have releases, because we can think that the release is the goal. Right?
Yeah. It's just an uncovering, layers and layers and layers and layers.
Right. And go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, you go. I'm muting.
Leah and I are both very excited. We're like, yay, yay, yay. But I'm very thankful that Leah brought that up, and because we can apply what so well to the discomfort, not getting attached to it or trying to get too heady of it. Where did it come from? Why is it there? What was I doing wrong? That can start to spin us out a little bit. But just realizing that you will experience many sensations through the practice. Some may feel really euphoric and like, oh my gosh, this is the best sensation ever. I love all this energy. And some of it may be like, oh my gosh, that was uncomfortable. I don't want to be here anymore. You know, that kind of thing. We may have these images and this stuff float through. What we want to do is allow it to just rise up and then pass away. Right. Leah says, like, Chittavirti, we don't attach, we watch without judgment, and we let them pass. Yes. Yes, yes. Very, very nice. Okay. Let's see, we were at 11:30. Let me see what I've got going up. There we go. So now I'd like to go ahead and move on, but I'll keep checking the chat. And if anyone has any questions or concerns that come up, then we'll address that. This is thank you, Leah. Thank you. Okay. All right. So healing sounds, your voice. This is, we're going to start entering into chanting. The chant that we did 2 chants in our practice today. Or 2 styles of chant, I should say. We did Sat Nam mentally, where I encourage you to mentally vibrate Sat Nam. Sat Nam meaning truth is my identity. Then when we did Sat Kriya at the end with the arms up overhead and pumping the stomach, we said the chant aloud, right? Words are powerful and perfect neurostimulators to activate and connect areas of the brain. When combined with repetitive movement and focused breathing, they are potent tools to elevate mood, enhance your range of feelings, and on a cellular level, change your consciousness and state of mind. Mantra is a creative projection of the mind through sound. Mind equals mind, or man equals mind, trong, wave, or projection. The power of mantra is in its vibration. So that's the power of mantra is in its vibration, which is why it can be said silently, at a whisper, or aloud. The science of mantra is based on the knowledge that sound is a form of energy having structure, power, and a definite predictable effect on the chakras and the human psyche. The Adi Mantra, tuning in. Now that was the first mantra or chant, you know, it was both, I guess you would say. The mantra is a repeated words that we say over and over. Sat Nam, Sat Nam, Sat Nam. The chanting is when we give it voice. Whether that be, once again, that we're saying it silently, at a whisper, or aloud. The golden chain of Kundalini is the Adi Mantra. The word Adi means first or primal. This mantra is the first creative action. It centers both the teacher and the student into the higher self, so that it's not the ego as mitta that is practicing or teaching. The golden chain is the inner spark of Kundalini that's passed person to person, teacher to student. It connects us to the lineage of our own teachers. By chanting the Adi Mantra and linking yourself consciously consciously, the exercises and the meditations that you practice are guided by your higher consciousness. The Adi mantra is a meditative link between you as an infinite personality and you as the flow of the infinite consciousness that guides the Kundalini energy. Practice this mantra to a master, excuse me, that's a typo, to a master of ability to put aside your fears, pride, expectations, and manipulations. I need to work on that sentence a little bit, but the idea around the practicing of mantra, especially the Adi mantra, which we're getting to, which is Agnuma Gurudev Namo, that mantra allows us to put away our fears, pride, expectations, and manipulations, which is why we say it, we chant it before class. Within you lies the spiritual light source of the universe. Radiate this energy outward, and you will be brighter than the sun. Right, the Adi mantra, Agnama Gurudev Namo. This is the chant. Now, I'm using two different words and I'm interplaying with them. So I don't want to, I need to stop there because I don't want any confusion around mantra and chanting. Mantra is what we are chanting, right? Those words that we're repeating over and over and over again to ourselves. Is everyone clear on that? Is anyone confused? I want to see if there's the chat screen. There we go. Let me make sure. Okay, love this concept about the Adi mantra, makes sense. Thank you. I just want to clear that up because in a Kundalini class, you're going to start the Kundalini class with Namo Gurudev Namo. And as we just read earlier, it is a spiritual connection to your lineage of teachers, spiritual connection to my lineage of teachers. But what I love so much about it is that it is designed to pull us out of our ego. And as a teacher, I rely on it heavily because I want to teach from my heart. I want to teach from compassion. I'm going to teach you what I know and have the willingness to come from that place. When I'm a student and I attend a Kundalini class, the same thing. I don't want to practice from my ego, right? Oftentimes, if we're practicing from our ego, that's how we get hurt. We're not listening to our body, to our inner self. So it's so important. Okay, Ong. Now, Ong has the tongue curls up at the top of the mouth. If you say it a couple of times to yourself, Ong, you can feel that the tongue goes up towards the top of the mouth. There's like 84 meridians at the roof of the mouth. The roof of the mouth has a lot of stimulation there. Ong is a creative energy of the total cosmos or consciousness. It generates Shakti, the generative force of life. It creates involvement without attachment. And I put a note here that Ong is not this Om sound. Those are two different mantras that manifest as a chant, right? The chanting of Om is a sound for relaxation. Om is it's a different vibration. It's a primordial vibration of sound. All right, that was just a little side note so that we know the difference between Ong and Om. Namo, to bow or call on with respect and receptivity. The idea of bowing is a type that grants dignity through acknowledging a higher consciousness and discipline. Ong Namo calls on your higher consciousness to be receptive to higher resources and to let go of restrictions imposed by the limited ego. And just oftentimes we can get stuck on words or wonder about words and chants on how they are affecting us. And so I liked this idea of bowing, the granting of dignity and acknowledging higher consciousness and discipline. Guru, wisdom or teacher. Now, guru also translates to taking one from darkness to light. Wisdom or teacher. But not in this, for us in Kundalini or here, and I think just in Guru in general, not a personality, but a source of knowledge that transforms you, alleviates pain, and heightens your awareness. Dev is etheric or divine, and it implies sophistication and wisdom. Gurudev Namo calls on the subtle that guides you in a personal, impersonal manner. It is a wisdom that is stored and transmitted through the radiant bodies of the aura, your own field. It's a very, very lovely chant. Mantra, a mantra that can be chanted. Let me say it that way. And I would encourage you that if you're comfortable with it, to use this, to tune in before you do anything. Oh, does somebody have a comment? Okay. Does anyone have a comment before I keep moving on? Because this is a lot of information to take in. And I'm looking for the screen to pop up again so I can see, share. There we go. All right, let me check out this chat. It says, is it the vibration or the message that can make you cry while chanting? Wow, that is a very good question, Charlie. I love it. It is the vibration. It is the vibration, and the reason why I say that is because each one of these words, Om, Namo, Gurudev, Namo, carry a specific vibration. That is Sanskrit in general. Even when we're practicing asana, asana, that's a Sanskrit word. The word asana has a different vibrational character to it than posture, right? Very, very different. Sanskrit is a language, a very vibrational language. And there are Sanskrit scholars that are interesting cats to talk to, that dissect each and every word and the movement of the tongue and how it touches the roof of the mouth and how the sound comes out. That's why I wanted to make the clarity between Ong and Om. Can you see how different those words are? Ong and Om. And if I would encourage you to even say those to yourself out loud, Ong and Om, and notice where the vibration is, that it's at a different, probably, I don't want to project, but more than likely, you can feel this, I know in my experience, you can feel it in a different place. Om, Ong. Does anybody want to tell me what they experienced when they did that, when they said that out loud? They chanted out loud? Okay, I'm glad that you asked that question, which was completely illuminating. Could you say the chant slowly? Yes. Ong, Namo, Guru, and I'm going to go over Guru. Guru, Dev, Namo. On Guru, we often say it Guru. The way to pronounce it is if you can see it spelled out, Guroo, Guru. So there's a long O sound, Guru. Ong, Namo, Guru, Dev, Namo. When you're practicing with mantra out loud to form a chant, move your mouth, move your tongue, move your lips. Like when you say Om, Om. You have an O ring of the lips. Om. Yes? Let me look at the chant here. Or the chat. Okay. Lauren says, yeah, Om is more calming and a little softer to me. Yes, it is. That is correct. Om is a chant or a mantra used for relaxation, which is oftentimes why people like to use it before and after a class as their way to tune in. You could tune in with that, right? There's plenty of people that choose to tune in with Om, and then they use Om at the end of class. Perfectly acceptable, wonderful. As you know, Leah had said, it's all yoga. This is just one of many mantras that presents itself as a chanting exercise, because when we're chanting, we are exercising the lungs. We typically are focusing on the outgoing breath. Does anyone have any other comments, please? Because this is very, very much a part of the system. We will use it we'll tune in, even when we come back from lunch, we'll use this to tune in. I encourage you to use it to tune in whenever you feel necessary, where you just want to connect spiritually to your higher self. That's what we're using with this chant, is to connect to our higher self. And again, come from our higher consciousness, our higher vibrations versus perhaps like the ego.
So I have a quick question.
Okay.
I'm not used to chanting. You did say for a couple of them to say it in your head. Is it different when you say it in your head versus outside of your head? Is my first part of the question. Like if I say it out loud, it's different from if I say it inside my head, right?
Yes, well, and it's working different parts of the mind. And we're actually going to cover that through the presentation even in more detail, but I'm glad that you brought that up. Thank you, Jenny. Let me see what's coming up next. What do I have here? All right, that's about the tongue. So when you're chanting out loud, that is going to help balance, stimulate the negative mind, to balance the negative mind. And we are going to go into greater detail. When you say it silently, when you say it to yourself, that is balancing and working with your neutral mind. When we say a chant at a whisper, that is the positive mind. So it is working on the different aspects of the mind qualities. And remember, that's not a good way to introduce that. If you aren't aware of the 10 bodies, the mind is 3 parts of the 10 bodies. You've got your negative mind, the positive mind, and the neutral mind. Did that answer your question, Jenny? Yeah, it's a good question. I'm glad that you brought that up, because that is, again, something that often you're encouraged to do. And let's consider that for just a moment. So you're practicing a lot of Kundalini, and you go and you learn this mantra, Sat Nam, truth is my identity, and you're encouraged to say Sat Nam to yourself as you're practicing, to mentally vibrate that to yourself. And you practice that, and you practice that. And again, so we know that's working on the neutral mind, to bring the mind into a neutral place, to calm the monkey mind, you know. And so we're off the mat. And we might find ourselves in that space of knowing that if our mind feels real aggravated or it's all over the place, perhaps mentally we start chanting to ourselves, Sat Nam, Sat Nam, Sat Nam, to bring the mind back to a calm space. And then, of course, you could use it differently. If you're in a space of negative mind, perhaps you need to say it out loud. Positive mind, saying it at a whisper. And we will go over the 3 minds later on. Positive, neutral charges, just like sumatomic, all connected. There we go. Yes, because we need all 3 parts of the mind. And like I said, we will return to this and discuss this in more detail, the 3 minds. So I had said, on the Ong, that when you say Ong, the tongue goes up to the roof of the mouth. Well, there's 84 meridian points to the roof of the mouth. The tongue stimulates those meridian points, then in turn stimulate the hypothalamus, and the pineal gland begins to radiate. The pineal gland radiates, it creates an impulse in the pituitary gland. When the pituitary gland gives impulses, the entire glandular system secretes, and the human being obtains bliss. This is the science behind what is going on within the body when we chant and the tongue is stimulating the roof of the mouth. And or when we're doing things like this, the shoulders coming up, and there's a lot of stimulation to the throat chakra, even the heart, and then this energy channel begins to open up, which means the energy is going to go up to the higher chakras, the pineal, the pituitary, the hypothalamus gland. And when these glands start to secrete, we start to feel that sensation of bliss, or maybe we just feel calmness, which is why taking the rest during and throughout the practice after each Kriya allows the body time to assimilate those glandular secretions. Let me see if there's anything going on in the chat. I tend to chant but close my mouth after a little while. I like the way that it vibrates inside, feels healings. Leah, why don't you talk about that? Chari Mudra.
Right. So Kachari Mudra, I really love that Om is stimulating that when I'm practicing. Well, actually, I'm taught to practice Kachari Mudra most of the time during the day, but we're raising the tongue up to the roof of the mouth, and then as we develop the ability to do so, we're moving it back further and further, so that as we're stimulating these beautiful meridians you're talking about, and pituitary and pineal glands, and this nectar, this divine nectar that's being released from these glands, we're catching it in our mouth, and we're swallowing it. And so we're swallowing the divine nectar that we're creating through that stimulation. So it's a beautiful practice, and through just through that mantra you were talking about, it can be experienced. So how beautiful.
Did anyone experience that, having some saliva come into the mouth? Extra. Yes? Let's see. Because it's what? Is someone speaking? I think I can hear. It's pretty amazing how that happens. And like Leah was saying, as those glands start to secrete and it starts to come down into the mouth, the nectar that she was referring to is called Amrit, the nectar of the gods. And as we stimulate inside the mouth, and that vibration, as many of you are saying, I like to close my mouth, I can feel the vibration inside. There was actually a study done about that, where somebody chanting Om, and it does start to drain even the sinuses. So that these things that we are talking about could be workshops on their own, right? Because there's so much to chanting, there's so much to a mantra, and all that's happening within your body. For our purposes today is to become familiar enough with it, or what my goal was, what my purpose was for you today, was that you would feel comfortable coming to class, knowing what Ang Namo Gurudev Namo, the Adi mantra, was doing for you spiritually, mentally, physically, and know what you're saying and to tune into its vibration. Very good. And to perhaps use it outside of class if you need it. It is yours to use in that way as well. Just like Leah said, she uses her Kachari Mudra out of class, or in these things out of class, off the mat. After each Kriya, like a segment in the practice. I don't quite understand what you mean, Georgina.
So when you said you do the chant after each Kriya to find to bring back and to center, are you excuse me, are you talking that a Kriya is one section? Because we did a couple of chants, like the Satnam was in one. So I'm just asking what you mean after each Kriya or during a Kriya is.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think yes, I'm trying. So Kriya translates to action. And it can be confusing, because what we did was the Kriya for elation, or excuse me, not elation, elevation. And within that Kriya were segments of exercises. That's why I brought in the word exercises, where within each segment, you could, and I do, refer to that as a Kriya. Like when we did the ego eradicator with the mudra, the hands in this mudra and the arms up, and we had a chant, we had all that going on. That in itself was a Kriya. Then we moved on to the spinal flex, where I encourage you to move the spine back and forth, focus on the brow point, and mentally, silently to yourself, focus on the mantra Satnam. That was a Kriya exercise. Then we moved on to another Kriya exercise. And then we moved on to another Kriya exercise. Did I answer your question, Georgina?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because that word is used so often and throughout that it can get confusing. Like, what are you saying? Is that like before? Is that after? Is that during? What's a Kriya? Is the whole thing a Kriya? And today, when we practice the Kriya for elevation, that was one long set prescribed. If somebody said, hey, we're going to do the Kriya for elevation, that's what you were going to practice. It's a given set. But within that, you had specific Kriya exercises. Okay. I think that. Okay. Kriya action, Yaso, divine. Any action is directed by soul. Thank you, Leah. Okay, so we're at 11:55. And let's see here. Thank you, Sue. I love you dearly. Thank you. Do the vibrating sound, what I was talking, the study, little fun fact. In the Karolinska Institute of Stockholm, Sweden, they found that humming Om increased the nitric oxide levels 15-fold compared to quiet exhalations without any sound. The vibrating the sound opened the tiny ducts, ostia, that connect your nose to your sinuses, allowing the sinuses to drain properly. Prana follows the vibration of sound of breath and or mantra. So I put that little tidbit in at the end because to know that when we are practicing with mantra, that we are actually asking prana to flow to that area and to flow in general. Does that resonate with everyone? Do I need to answer any questions on that? Yes, Leslie. That would explain why your nose was running so much. See there? You're like part of the case study. Yes, it was through the vibration. It started to open up the sinuses. Yes. Okay. So there. Okay, I feel like this is let me just check to see. Oh, we'll look at this guy because look at him. Do you look at him and you just want to smile and be happy? Look at those eyes and that little face. Healthy is being physically strong, mentally calm, and steady and emotionally soft. That's from Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. All right. So we've got 11:58. We can stop here. I'm going to check out the chat. That's cool. Beautiful. All right. Any burning questions before we break for lunch? All right, beautiful, beautiful people. Thank you so much for showing up. It's 99.9% that's just getting to class, right? Thank you for being here. Please feel free, now that I've figured out how to use chat, and ask your questions, and we'll return at 1. Thank you all so much. And let's see, what will we start on? Haha, the 3 minds. All right, so when we come back, we'll dive into the 3 minds. So much love to you all. I'll see you in about an hour, around 1 o'clock, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, loves. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.